Both the outer door handles on this Porsche 914 are pretty much non-functional. So I've got a couple of replacements. I'm going to try to fix them, or at least get one side fixed or whatever, because I got to reach inside to pull the inner door handle to get the door to unlatch. So let's take a look at that. Alright, passenger side, I see right away it's got what appears to be a different fastener. I don't think that's correct. That's like a carriage bolt. So let me reach in here and open it up. Yeah, that ain't right. So this one, I mean, a lot of times that tab will break off right there. This one may be salvageable. I don't know. I got to get it out and take a look. Door cards on this car are actually pretty nice. So let's go to the driver's side. So yeah, you see what happens right there. See how that tab is broken off. So this one is toast. Now you may be able to take these door handles apart and save little pieces parts. That I'm not sure of. But I think I'm going to work on driver's side first. Maybe. Let's go to the bench, because I noticed something odd on these two replacement parts. First thing you'll note is that there is a part number and they are labeled left and right. I've lubricated this one. So this one's left, driver's side. This one's right. See it right there. Now, unfortunately, on the driver's side, that stud is broken off. Now, could that be drilled out and a different fastener put in there? I don't know. What I'm seeing is this is pretty cheap metal. It's like pot metal. So sometimes when you get in there and drilling or whatever, it doesn't go very well. So I think the first step is to pull the driver's side latch out and see what's going on with it, aside from the fact that this tab is broken off. So to get the door card off, you got this cover that's on the latch there. That's held in by this screw that is under the latch. It goes through that hole in that cover. And then the window crank, I thought that was a cap that would pull out, but it's actually the whole exterior is like a plastic facade, and then the crank itself is underneath it, and it was held in with this screw, which I guess is the correct one. Anyway, or maybe I got those backwards. So the only thing else should be some screws on this door pocket, which I see that got a couple different kinds, or maybe some other little small screws along the bottom here. Yeah, I can see one inside of the door pocket there, a couple. So we'll get all them out, and this whole thing should lift off. Backside of this door card, not too bad. This is warped from moisture. I mean, most of the little snaps came out okay, so that's good. Should pop right back in pretty well. I'll clean it up. Let's look at the door itself, the inside of the door. Not too bad, really. That's a real rust-prone area. Does look like somebody's put in some silicone or something down there, so there may be some rust areas, but I'll vacuum it out. And then let's see how this joins together. So that rod actuates right there. Sometimes this can be a little tricky because it's all about protecting the car from break-ins. So I'll start disassembling this and we'll get I know I've done it before, I've just forgotten. So that's super simple. You can see it in that cup in the door. There's a hole there. That's where I think it's like a 5mm cap screw goes in there. That mates up with that hole right there. So once you get that out, it just pops out. Now that let's call it a nib, actually just sticks right in that fork, and that's what actuates the door itself. I suspect there may be a bushing or something missing there because it's an awful large fork for such a small nib. Just doesn't seem big enough. So anyway, let me put this on the bench beside the other and see what we can do. So the fork inside the door actually does two things. When that rotates, it locks, right? And this plastic collar, when it slides up and down, it actually unlatches the door. So that's the reason it's as big as it is, because that needs to fit inside of it. So that being said, I'm still not sure why this tip, unless that has something to do with the locking action. So anyway, I think boy, swapping this stuff out maybe a little bit more complicated. I mean, bottom line, I need to get this one in there. I'm not worried about the key lock or anything. Now I know why they used the carriage bolt on the passenger door, because they drilled that out and just put a carriage bolt in there, because it's close. So that may be what I need to do. I'll just need to be careful when I'm drilling so I don't fracture that metal. I mean, otherwise this latch is in pretty good shape. Another thing I was looking at is the action on that collar. This one seems a little stiff. We could put some more lubricant on there, some lithium grease or something like that will probably help it along. So I think that's what the next step. I want to drill this out, find a nice little carriage bolt, and put it in there. I shimmed it up with some stuff, put it on the bench press, because yeah, that metal's super soft. I got this side done, and I went ahead and just used the hex head. Now, I know why they put a carriage bolt on the other side, because when you take your fingers underneath there, you're going to catch them on the hex head. Now, for me, it's all right. I'll just, because I'll be the one getting in and out of this, and I can change that out later. What is a little tricky, though, is getting that set screw back up in there. You can barely see it on the top left corner. It's because you're just working in there by feel. I'm going to lube up the window regulator and vacuum out the bottom of this thing, and before I put the door card on. I think next I'll move to the other side and see what the heck's going on over there. On the passenger side door card, there's no real compartment. It's just sort of a trim piece, and it fits up on those little clips, and then it looks like there's cap screws holding the door handle on. So a little bit different setup over here. The door card on the passenger side is not that bad either. I mean, in fact, it's got just about all the clips except for these 3 on the bottom, but that door handle screws in there, so that helps things along. Excellent. All right, so what's going on with the passenger side? This is the one that came out. It's got the carriage bolt. Is the plastic piece that pushes the fork is missing. Now, even on this replacement, that's fractured. But on the one that I just pulled off the driver's side, it's in good shape. So I may try to scavenge this one. Unfortunately, I think you'd have to drill that pin out to get that off there. Let me fiddle around with that, and I'll let you know what I find. So it can be done. I've got this plastic, whatever you want to call it, off. Just took the lever, which is part of the lock mechanism. Now note there's a spring inside of there, and I'm not exactly sure what the orientation is. Doesn't really matter to me as long as it doesn't stop the function of opening the door, because I'll never use locks on this car. Don't trust them. So, but the trick is, you down here, you have to pry these out a ways to get that nib underneath there. So I wasn't too worried about this one because that's part of all this. It's broken anyway. So, but when I put it on the other one, I have to be super careful about not breaking that metal. Okay, I transferred that collar over to this one. This is the one, the original with the carriage bolt. Transferred it from this one that the tab broke off on. That was from the driver's side. It's not easy. You got to really hold your mouth just right. What does help is if you put this in a vise and tip it, you're actually opening the door. That brings that plastic piece up to the top, right? Of course, you won't have this on, and then whenever it slides up, you can pry those ears out just enough to slide that plastic from underneath it. It's pretty challenging, really. But I'm gonna stick this in the passenger door and see if it works. Passenger side back together, works great. One thing I did want to show you guys is that when you're putting those exterior latches back in, right, make sure the striker is in this position. If it's pointed down, for some reason that fork inside of there, all that gets monkeyed up, and the latch will not function correctly. So I had to take the passenger side out and then reposition the striker or the latch or whatever that's called to get it to work properly. So yeah, just putting the cards back in, cleaning everything up, vacuuming and lubricating the window mechanisms. Otherwise, once I button this thing up, this little project will be a done deal.